Hello everyone, welcome back to Mystic Louise. It's Louise, and yeah, I've been gone a while. I started my YouTube channel and then I dipped for like an entire month. But yeah, I've just been super busy. I've had a dissertation to hand in and some other university related things. There's been things like happening in my life where I just needed to pay attention to it, you know, like possibly moving soon, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's been busy. Oh, you're about to see a cat, I think, if she gets into the shot. Yeah, well, just a little bit. Anyway, so yeah, sorry if you do encounter the cats. I can't shut them out because they'll cry. So yeah, anyway, this video is going to be about just deities and the decks that I use for them. So I've mentioned in my, I think it was my top 10 video, and the occult tea tag that I did, where I was basically just talking about how most of my decks I use to communicate with certain entities in my spiritual path, and that's why I have multiple decks. So I want to go through those today. It's really just more of a fun video because I just need to relax, I think. It's like I said, it's been a heavy few months. But yeah, I'm going back to what I just said. You know, I started the channel and then it just seemed like I dipped and I left and wasn't bothering with it anymore. I was just busy, and to be honest, I did film a couple videos actually, and they didn't go very well. I just wasn't very inspired. To be honest, I had nothing really to say, so I just didn't upload them in the end. But anyway, hopefully this video is fun. So yeah, there's a few decks each for each deity that I'm going to go through. I obviously will showcase some decks for them. Some have more than others. For context, I am a devotee of Venus, if you haven't already figured out by the channel. Channel name, well, not the channel name, but the banner and the profile picture. I'm a devotee of Venus, and there's multiple Venus entities that, like, I've kind of got my own little pantheon of Venus energies that I communicate with, so I will be going through them. So these are Ishtar, Sekhmet, Lilith, and Aphrodite, Isis, and Kalimar. So I hesitate with the Isis and Kalimar, and I think people will have some opinions whether Sekhmet is Venus or not, but they are connected to Venus, so whatever. So without further ado, let's get into the first deity. So the first deity that I want to talk about is Aphrodite. I'm kind of going to go in alphabetical order because that just seems like the easiest thing to do. I've got two decks to show for her, but we'll start with the Mermaid Tarot. So this is the box. It's a Llewellyn box, a Llewellyn deck, sorry. I hope you can see this. Yes, okay. So here's the guidebook. It's kind of like a deal. So here's the deck. This deck is just, I don't know if you would say that mermaids are associated with Aphrodite, but I don't know, I think the sea in general is reminiscent of Aphrodite. I see her very much as a sea and sky goddess, the love aspect and the beauty aspect of the sea and the sky. Is this in shot? Yes. Okay. So this is the Mermaid Tarot, and what I find this deck really nice for is just kind of going through your emotions. I kind of go to this deck when, obviously I need to speak to Aphrodite, but it's way more in the water realm. So emotions, my spiritual life, love and beauty themes. So yeah. Oh, didn't have much to say about this one. Well, it's just, I don't know, mermaids to me are very Aphrodite. It's kind of that connection of human to the ocean. You know, I think mermaids are spiritual entities of the sea, so it's nice, and I think they're just indicative of Aphrodite herself. So, yep. Oh god, I hope this video is interesting. I'm sorry guys. Yeah, so that's the Mermaid Tarot, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I think mermaids are just symbols of Aphrodite herself. Okay, so on to the next deck for Aphrodite. Okay, so the next one... Oh, 2 seconds guys, I'm sorry. Okay, resume. Cats are beings of chaos. So this one comes with a little bit of a warning. There's nudity in this deck. So this is the Erotic Fantasy Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. And yeah, I purchased this deck originally for Inanna Ishtar. So I was basically just stereotyping her at the time, but I wanted to have a deck for her, and because, you know, on her surface level, Ishtar is very much a goddess of love and beauty. Jesus Christ. She's a goddess of love and beauty, and I was very much just only surface level connecting with that aspect of her. Now I feel Ishtar is way more of like the she's more the archetype of the queen, archetype of the sovereign queen, and to me she doesn't feel very focused on, like, you know, sex and sexuality. She definitely holds those aspects. She holds a lot of aspects. If you're familiar with her myth, she holds all of the me's. But yeah, I just felt this separation between Aphrodite and Ishtar in the last couple of months. Well, I've been feeling it for a long time, but it's only just started to make sense in the last couple of months, I'd say. So Aphrodite is way more, she's way more blissful, and she's way more relaxed, and she's way more, I don't know how to describe it. She's just a lot more relaxed. So there's nudity in this deck. But anyway, so I thought picking like a sexual deck or whatever would just be appropriate. And it's not really for Ishtar. Like, I mean, come on, look at this. It's just a bit, it's not done well in my opinion. I don't think this deck is very, it's just not done well. It's a bit crass, is that the word? And obviously because it's Lo Scarabeo, it's just a little white book with it. So it doesn't give you any context. Like, it doesn't feel like the nudity or the sexual things are there for any real symbolism. It just kind of feels like it's there because the artist liked ass and titties. Like, let's be real. Like, it's fine. Like, we all love some ass and titties, but you know, like, it's just things like this. Like, there's no eroticism in this, I don't think, which is not a complaint. It's just, okay, well then why is it in here? Like, I don't know. But then, like, I look at cards like this. Is it the Knave of Pentacles? Oh, we have a cat. 2 seconds. Okay, return. So yeah, this card is very much like, well, why does she have to be in that position? It just feels like the symbolism of what nudity and like sex could have brought didn't bring to this deck. But I do love this deck because the colour palette is just really nice. I think the art is actually very nice. But yeah, like the different suits, I don't understand the worlds. Like, obviously in Wands there's like some like tribal kind of energies going on, kind of theme. This reminds me of Lilith. Then you've got like some runes, and I'm like, what are you? I don't understand the thought process behind this deck. But yeah, but I love it at the same time because it's very, I love the colours, I do like the art, it makes me laugh, it's very fun. So yeah, I don't really know how to feel about this deck. For a long time I didn't use it. For the last year it's really not been a deck that I've cared for. This reminds me of Lilith, but also Ereshkigal, which is maybe a bit weird, like Ereshkigal going down to the underworld to become queen of the underworld. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, I haven't used it for Ishtar in quite a while. I use my Phinician Oracle for Ishtar. It's way more in alignment with her. Like, come on, like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't use it for Ishtar anymore because it's just not in alignment with her. And I think because it makes me laugh and it's kind of pastel-y, is that even right thing to say? The colour palette is just light and airy and it's really nice. So this reminds me of Inanna, like Queen of Heaven, come on. And that's another thing about this deck, like there's actually so many cards, like this one as well reminds me of Ishtar. Like there's so many cards that remind me of Inanna Ishtar, but then the general feel of it is very Aphrodite, very funny, cheeky, carefree. Yeah, like and that's what I love using it for. And I do just use this for relationships, I guess. I use it mainly for me and my romantic partner. So, well, my romantic partner, my boyfriend and me. Like, I would pull this out to talk to Aphrodite about things like that. And it's just good. At one point, I was going to get rid of it. I'll be real. It was in a box. I was like, I just can't. But one thing that I've learned is just not to take it so seriously. And if I did get rid of this deck, like, I don't think anyone would buy it. I don't think it would sell. And yeah, like, I might as well keep it and enjoy it if no one else is going to get it. That's my thought process anyway. But yeah, like, what is the point? There's just no point. Like, why is a boob out? There's no fucking reason. Oh, this reminds me of Ereshkigal. See, there's a lot of deities in here. Yeah, there's like a few cards actually. Where is that one? There's a card in here that this is very Inanna, very Aphrodite too. There's a card in here. It's like my favourite card. It's the Four of Pentacles, and it reminds me of the myth of Inanna, and the Halupu tree. Oh my god! Please, where are you? Here it is. Right. So this card really reminds me of the myth of Inanna and the Halupu tree. So in the myth, she's in she's in like a garden. I think it's like actually the Garden of Eden. She's in the Garden of Paradise basically, and she's by the Halupu tree. And basically she doesn't really hold any power yet in the story. She's still very much a child goddess, if you like. She's not a goddess yet. She's still yet to find her power and what her place is in the cosmos. And she's in a bit of a spot in the myth where she's begging for help. She's asking for someone to give her power, basically. And things that were like stopping her, she was trying to make a throne out of the tree as well. She was trying to become the queen of the earth. That's basically my thoughts on it. But there was a snake and an owl, so they represent a couple of demons that, you know, from my understanding, were stopping from her becoming powerful. And that's what I think the snake represents here. And I feel like this ancient goddess statue, which is actually, I believe this model here is one of the first, it is actually one of the first statues that we found in history of the goddess. So I find that really cool. I see this as Inanna kind of in a way praying to herself or asking to be initiated into becoming a goddess. She's connecting to her femininity, ultimately her female power, to then become the goddess. So I hope that's not boring for me to talk about. But yeah, I see. Oh, it's the Five of Pentacles. I said four by accident, sorry. The Five of Pentacles is obviously conflict and struggle, feeling shut out of your power. You don't have any help, or feel like you don't have any help, but really, you know, a big part of Five of Pentacles to me is also recognising you have your own power. So yeah, this is like, I love this card. This is my favourite Five of Pentacles ever. Bit white as a butt, how, like, Why is a butt out? Like, this could have been a great just general deck if it wasn't, like, sexualized so boringly. Like, I don't know. See, again, Inanna, Empress. Like, that is Inanna Ishtar to me. Anyway, I'll stop talking about this deck. But yeah, that's the Erotic Fantasy Tarot. I do love this deck. So, even though it holds Ishtar energy, the general feel of it is Aphrodite. But if I really wanted to connect to Aphrodite, I probably would just use the Mermaid Tarot, but this one it does have a general goddess feel as well, but ultimately I use it for Aphrodite. So that's the Erotic Fantasy Tarot. On to the next. Okay, so the next deck is actually for Ishtar. I've just mentioned that it's the Phinician Oracle that I use for Ishtar. I've spoke about this deck already in my top 10 decks. And what I use it for, but obviously I'll go through it quickly here. So this deck is basically... Oh, reverse. This deck is based on the alphabet that they used in ancient Phoenician, like amongst the ancient Phoenicians. So they have like the symbol, and then like what it means up here, and then some beautiful artwork to go with it. And it's basically when, you know, in the early stages of trade in like the Near East and things like that, they would have these symbols, and it created obviously the alphabet, like so that amongst traders you can understand each other. There's a common language there. I'm not explaining this very well, but you know. So this is what this deck is about. Cat's destroying a box. Anyway, so yeah, this is a special deck because it's in theme of where my goddess is from. I think actually amongst the Phoenicians they would have actually been worshipping Astarte, but Astarte is still a face of Inanna Ishtar that I recognise and feel the energy of, so yes, I still love this deck. So this is just it's a very sacred deck to me, and it's very good for clarification in a tarot reading as a main theme. But yeah, so this is Ishtar's deck, and I feel that it just does encompass her energy very well for obvious reasons. So that was a very quick one. On to the next. Another obvious one. This is the Ceccoli Oracle by Alana Fairchild, and I use this deck obviously to connect to Kali Ma. It is in my top 10 decks of all time. And really, what do I say about this deck? It's obvious, isn't it? What I like about this deck is that even though there isn't like traditional artwork like this, there is a nod to it's a nod to original artwork. But then it goes its own way. Obviously Jimmy Manton has a specific style. He's the artist of this deck, and he's gone his own way, but really still incorporates the symbolism of Kali Ma. And this deck really goes into more than I expected. It actually really helped me to understand Kali Ma so much better. There's opinions out there that this deck is very whitewashed and it's like doesn't represent Kali Ma very well. I disagree. Obviously as a white girl anyway, and I'm not Hindu, I'm not from India, I'm not a tantric practitioner, I'm not anything like that, I understand that. But this deck, I don't really see why people say it's whitewashed or anything like that, because it opened me up to the things, to the different traditions of Kali Ma and to the different schools of thought and the different sister goddesses that she is connected with, and it gave me such a better understanding and research jumping off points to understand her better and her symbolism. Yeah, like, this deck is beautiful. Obviously this is not traditional artwork of Dhumavati, right? She's meant to be an old, like, hag lady. Okay, I get that, but it's his style of artwork. I think that's why people got pissed off. But I think Alana Fairchild, like, the Nityakalis, amazing. Like, the Nityakalis and the red goddesses of the moon. Like, that's awesome. Like, this deck is not the stereotypical, like, oh, just pictures of Kali and it says abundance on it, and it's, you know, you know, all the other keywords that are just generic that you can get in an oracle deck. This is very much, you have to dig deeper to understand it, and you actually have to form an understanding of the deck and of the beings within this deck, the symbolism in this deck. Now the thing is, I think, you know, Kali Ma herself is actually a black goddess, and obviously she's blue. There is an aspect of Kali that is blue. I think it's like the top. I mean, again, I'm not, what's the word? I'm not damn, what's the word? Not professional. I'm not an expert in the world of Kali. Obviously not. I have limitations to teachers that I don't have access to fully understand her. I don't live in India. So I'm obviously going to be limited to my understanding. But this deck obviously has brought out a lot more to me than I would have ever imagined. You enjoying that box, Lily? God. So yeah, anyway, but again, like, this is not whitewash. This is like the ethnicity that you should be seeing from where Kali is from. So yeah, people have opinions about it, but again, oh well. But I really like this deck, as the white girl that I am, and I think if you are beginning to get to know Kali, this is a great deck for getting to know her. It really opens up doors for you to understand her. Okay, so now we're getting into 3 decks for Lilith. Just to quickly speak about Lilith for a moment, I did a video a couple months back on Lilith, and it was really me talking about kind of my issues with my relationship with her. If you want more context about it, you can go watch it. I do have now updated thoughts on Lilith, and I can say that I do have a spiritual relationship with her. I've invited her back into my pantheon of Venus beings, and I want to do more videos on her, and also just, well, yeah, I want to do more videos on her, but these are the 3 decks that I use for her. So which one have I got a shot? Well, we'll start with the Ceccoli Tarot. So this is the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot. It's a very popular deck. Obviously artist is from Nicoletta Ceccoli, and it's a low Scarabeo deck. So yeah, so this deck is very special to me. How do I say it? So to me, this deck is very much a deck about being the weird kid. So in Lilith's myth, I feel she's very much a goddess of, she went through exile, she was seen as different, and this is very surface level, but this is what I want to get into in more videos. She was exiled and shunned for wanting something different, for being different, for having a different thought process on something, different beliefs, and then Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot, I feel, represents that. I'm just getting pissed on that. I'm potentially neurodivergent. Autism, ADHD, I don't really know. I'm waiting for an assessment. And this deck really makes me think of that little kid that I was being neurodivergent. Even if I'm not, I still feel like a weird child. I was definitely the weird kid growing up, and I'm still into some weird stuff. Obviously, I'm into the occult or whatnot. But this deck just makes, like, it brings out, like, the artwork brings out moments in my life where I really felt, upset and hurt by certain situations that neurodivergent people can go through, and feeling very messed up inside, very vulnerable, kind of, because they're like small children in this really nightmarish landscape, and obviously the artwork is very evocative, but it can hint to abuse, whether that's whatever kind of abuse that you experience. Mine was more emotional abuse experienced as a child. So it really talks to me about things like that. And so naturally this is my shadow work deck. Like, ew, what the fuck? This is so creepy. I love it. Yeah, so I have a practice with Lilith where I pulled this deck out with the Dark Mirror Oracle. I should have really had that in this list, but whatever. I used this deck to kind of check in with that side of myself. So I guess you could say it's inner child work, but it's kind of like dystopian inner child work. And because this looks like Lilith, like, I don't know, reminds me of her. And I feel that she is someone who understands that. I think at her core, she's a goddess of rebellion. Again, like, she's the patron of exiled people, like people who feel out, like outsiders, outlaws, if you like. And there is this kind of innocence, wounded innocence about it. I'm really not even scratching the surface about what I feel about this deck. Also, if anyone knows, what is it, Poppy? You know, I'm Poppy. She's a singer now. She's a musician. But it's the blonde girl, very robotic, that she used to post weird videos on YouTube. I love her, and like images like this remind me of Poppy. Kind of her whole robotic aesthetic. Like, let me show you. Like, this reminds me of Poppy. So. And Poppy very much is also kind of in the same vein of this deck. Like, that artist reminds me of feeling very alienated and very struggles to be human. And I don't know, if you know, you get me. Oh, is it right? There's another cat potentially coming in the shop. No, she's gone. Okay, all right, thank you. So yeah, this deck really reminds me of Lilith and those kind of properties and energies that she holds, and it encourages me, you know, pulling it out once a month, like on the dark moon and things like that. It's giving myself space to bring up those feelings, you know, from like masking and like things that you struggle with as a neurodivergent person, and it gives me a chance to look at that and not let it fester within me. So it's really helpful for that. Like, the artwork is just so good. Like, I use it as an oracle deck sometimes, like most of the time. But anyway, on to the next one for Lilith. So this is the Victoria Francis Oracle. I swear this was called the Gothic Oracle. When I used to look at it online like years ago before I purchased it, and now it's just Victoria Francis Oracle, and I was like, is this like the Mandela effect? Like, Mandala effect? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you think something says something, but it actually hasn't. It's never said that, and it's like parallel universe or some shit. I don't know. But this is the Victoria Francis Oracle. Artwork by Victoria Francis. Published by Lo Scarabeo. That's the backing. So this deck, I mean, first of all, looks like Lilith. Come on now. I love Gothic artwork. This is along with Anne Stokes' artwork, this is the artwork I used to love just staring at for ages on Google Images. I loved this type of artwork, and I obviously never really knew who it was that made this artwork. But then obviously I found this deck on the internet, on Amazon. I've seen it on a lot of people's, you know, deck collections, and people have made videos on this deck. And I was like, oh my god, like, I love that type of artwork, I need it. And yeah, like, again, it's like the Ceccoli Tarot, where because it has no titles, it's really nice to just see what your intuition is saying. And really that's what I use it for. Like, it's a nice deck to pull a card from, and I kind of just ask it, what is my emotions doing? So like, in my inner world, I feel like it's this aesthetic. Like, my inner world is Gothic Victoria Francis landscape, and you know, vampires and witches, it very much feels like that. Yeah, it feels very much like vampires and witches, which I love. So, like in TVs and movies and, you know, fiction. And I think vampires and witches are also very much energies of Lilith. Obviously, you can have your own opinions on that. But yeah, because this is reminiscent of, like, I guess how I could feel on the inside. Like, it's, I think Racine from Owl Moon 513, when I was watching a video of hers and she was speaking about this deck, she was saying it's very much like goth sad girl vibes. And I was like, I have never forgotten that. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's what this deck is. Sad girl vibes. And that's very much my inner self, cringe as it may be, but I don't know, it works in a similar way to Ceccoli Tarot, where I pull from it once a week just to see what my emotions are doing, because I feel like this deck is very dramatic. I can be a very dramatic person when it comes to my emotions. I can get really dramatic about the way I'm feeling, when really it helps me identify that drama, and sort of, because I'm aware of it, then it means I can not let it keep me in that space, if that makes sense. So yeah, and the reason I say it's a Lilith deck is because I think it represents, again, her aesthetic, if you like. It's very vampiric, and it's it reminds me of her being in the Witch's Woods, if you like, exploring her power through leaving the Garden of Eden, that whole myth, and her, like, this makes me feel like her coming into herself. You know, this could potentially mean her running away from her and Adam, and going into the woods and becoming something different, like, and her going through the whole emotional process of that. That's what it makes me think of. So yeah, the guidebook is good as well. I actually do like the guidebook. So if you want, like, straight up divinatory actual messages, this is very good for that. But this is the Victoria Francis Oracle. You know, in a separate universe it's called the Gothic Oracle. But yeah, this is a very lovely deck to have for Lilith. So on to the next one. So the last one, but also my favourite one to connect with Lilith, is the Tarot of Vampyres, obviously. So as I was just saying, vampires are very much a theme, an archetype, character in fiction that I feel is very much the essence of Lilith. So this is a Llewellyn deck. It's by Ian Daniels. This deck is very popular, and if you are someone who's a fan of Racine from Owl Moon 513, you know that she's absolutely obsessed with this deck. This is her, what she calls her home deck. Yeah, so let me just get this out of the way. So this is a Tarot of Vampyres, and although this is a Lilith deck for me, it does remind me of Venus as a whole. Well, not as a whole, it's the dark side of Venus, I would say. It's the dark divine feminine face of Venus, which I see as Lilith. So shows me, oh, we got the Fool. How great is that? So yeah, what to say. So obviously, like I said, this is I see Lilith as the dark divine feminine face of Venus, and that encompasses, like, kind of like her demoness themes. You know, so when we get into the darker things, that is Lilith. I just burped then, I'm so sorry. But she does have a darker and I mean darker aspect. I'm not just saying that she wears dark makeup and she's, you know, edgy or whatever. Like, there's actually demoness themes to Lilith. I see her as a destruction goddess of the divine feminine. So, you know, she has experienced in her myth child death. You know, her children are condemned to die in her myth, because, like, she creates monsters or whatever. She's very anti-fertility because she's a demon, you know. I can see her representing those kind of things. What was the other thing I was going to say? I do think she represents that aspect of Mother Earth that is, that instead of providing life or bringing life forth, she kills that aspect. And those things are dark. Like, there's no pretty way of saying it. Exploring those themes, not invoking those themes, but exploring those themes is interesting. And, you know, I do think she is also someone who is nice to walk with if you are someone who doesn't want to have children, or, you know, who doesn't want to live that traditional life. Like, oh, hello. I don't know, like, I feel like this kind of subject needs to be handled better with care, because I think if I also explaining those things about Lilith, people get very mad. You know, she's not evil, she's not a demon, like, or if she's a demon, she's not like that, she's been made out to be these stupid things. You can't ignore the myths, in my opinion. Like, I'm not going to ignore those succubus sides of her either. Like, those are all things, and I think that still approaching her with caution is better. And it has to feel right. Oi, stop fighting each other, Jesus Christ. Oh, fucking... Sorry about that. So, yeah, she has a darker side, and I do feel that she is, you know, she is that witch archetype as well, where she, kind of like the Scepters, right? She goes against God, and I have thoughts all about that, which I really want to explore deeper. But anyway, maybe I should just leave it there. But this Tarot of Vampires is the dark, divine, feminine side of Venus. It explores those things. It has imagery of, obviously, vampires. It has like these demon creatures, these like Gorgon creatures, like there's very Medusa-esque, I don't think I'll be able to find it, but there's Medusa kind of imagery, Gorgon imagery, which is very interesting. Snakes, you know, crows, like it just has a lot of symbolism to do with Lilith. Like, this is very Lilith, alright. And obviously there's the magical aspect of Lilith, where she's you know, I feel like she's, because she became a demon, she then gained knowledge on magical arts and, you know, just magic in general. And obviously there's that immortal, eternal life aspect of kind of vampires, you know, in traditional myth, when people used to believe about vampires, was they are mocking the eternal life aspect of God. I find that very interesting. So like, this is kind of like a mockery of that, where they represent earthly life, and that ultimately separates you from divinity. Please don't get I hope no one gets pissed off, but I don't think those things are evil, but again, I'll get into hopefully a video all about that. But yeah, this deck is very, very Lilith, but I think it does work as well with most of my goddesses. So Ishtar and Sekhmet really like this deck also. So yeah, and I think even Kali, I don't say her name right, really like this deck as well, and I can use it with them, but it's very much Lilith. Okay, so that's the end of the Lilith part. I'm going to get onto the last deck now. So the last deck is the Ritual Tarot by Tierra May. This is the 2nd edition. It's an independent deck. You can get it on Etsy. It's very popular. I don't think anyone has not heard about this deck. So this deck is last because I actually use it for pretty much all of my goddesses. So Ishtar, Lilith, Sekhmet, Isis, Aphrodite can use this, but again, I'd just rather use the Mermaid Tarot, the Erotic Fantasy Tarot. Did I say Kali? Kali likes this deck. All of them. I can use this deck for all of them. But I mainly like to use this deck for Sekhmet. So this deck is a collage deck. I can get out the box. There's the inner thing. It's a very beautiful... Oh yeah, it's 2nd edition. So it doesn't have this backing now. I think the current version is the 3rd edition, so it has a different backing. And this is unmarked, so it doesn't have any of the titles on the cards. So this deck I use for all my goddesses. It's I've lost my train of thought. It's a collage deck, so it feels very chaotic. It's interesting because this deck is chaotic because it's collage, but it's not a deck that feels very like there's just chaos and that's it. The images have been placed strategically in my feeling, it's done in a way where you can actually see all the symbolism in the deck. It's not done in a way that, like, my eyes are literally, I cannot make out what's on this card. I nearly bought the Telesma Tarot, which I still really eye up. I really like the look of that deck. But in the end I decided not to and get the Ritual Tarot instead, because it really was a cross between the two, and they're both expensive, so I didn't want to get two. And I felt that this was the deck to go for instead of the Telesma, because when I looked at that deck, it took my eyes a while. But this has an image, and because there's no titles, it unlocks my intuition so well. For a while I was thinking about putting the titles on, but I just decided not to, because I liked how it worked instead. In a way I felt sometimes I was missing a trick with this deck, because it is based on the Thoth, I think. But obviously because there's no titles, you can just ignore that part. You can just read it as a Rider-Waite-Smith, which is pretty much what I do. I am going to try and study the Thoth better. I don't have the Thoth deck. I don't really care for it. I think it's really beautiful, but I just don't need it. So I think I might just get a guidebook, so that I know what symbolism is in here, so I don't feel like it's just glossing it. So it doesn't feel like I'm just missing a trick, basically, with the symbolism. But ultimately it doesn't matter, because it just feels more of an oracle deck, to be honest. And obviously, because it's a bit pippish, just a bit, that helps you out. So it's not all bad. Oh, the candles are here so that I know where the edge of the screens are, so I just keep knocking them. But yeah, so I use this deck mainly for Sekhmet, but I find that Isis, Kali, Lilith, Ishtar, they all really like this deck as well. I can get a reading out of them. So mainly when I want to communicate with all of them at once, I can use this deck, and it works very nicely. But Sekhmet especially likes this deck, and because she's a very fiery warrior archeress goddess, I think that the collage style is what she likes about it. But then because she's also a goddess of justice and order as well, she's a goddess that upholds Ma'at, so the laws of the universe. She's not straight up just chaos. That feeling I was talking about before, about how it feels very strategically placed, all of the images, and you can still make out what's going on. That's what feels like it's her language the most. So what the hell? Resuming, so yeah, that's what feels like Sekhmet to me. And it also feels very ancestral, because a lot of the images are of nature and like of ancient, like, you know, like obviously the swords and the wands, but these are arrows. It feels very like my ancestors are also speaking to me, so it feels like it has that voice to it as well, which I really like. I love this backing. I'm so glad I got this edition. It reminds me of Kalimar, like the whole universe behind. You can see the galaxy stars, and I don't know, this just feels very Kalimar to me. I don't know why, but it just does, and it's a great deck. So I can use it for all of my divinities, but specifically Sekhmet. So that concludes the end of this video. Actually, one second. I just want to talk about the Ritual Tarot, just one more thing about the Ritual Tarot for a second. So here's the guidebook. The guidebook isn't this big anymore in the 3rd edition, so if you get it, it's going to be to the box size, so it's going to fit into the box. But this is, again, you know how I was saying about, this is the way the minors are. So the majors are like this, right? Here's the world. Don't know if you can see everything, but they get a whole page, right? And then the minors are just, there you go. And I just feel like, obviously she's an independent artist, right? She's an independent artist. She's not going to give too much information, but I could have done without this book. Like, I'll be real. Like, even in the new edition, the 3rd edition, it feels like this has just been minimised for the box, which is better in my opinion, but I really just feel like if you get a Tarot 101 book, you'll be fine, because this doesn't really go into the fluff things. I do like in the majors, can you see? Yeah. It gives you opposing cards and reinforcing cards, which I love. But then that's kind of it. The majors, again, are good with the brief information it gives you. But then after that, the minors are left to shit, and I just feel like it could have been better. So I really don't like the guidebook. But yeah, so that's my little tiz about Ritual Tarot. But again, it's a very nice deck as well. I just have some criticisms about it. So there we go. That's the end of this video. Those are all the decks that I use for specific beings, or a multitude of beings. Yeah, I'm hoping to do more videos on deities in the future, kind of my way of working with them, connecting with them as a mystic. And yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.